And thank you to the organizing team. I really look forward to moderating this very important topic. So, yeah, Nikita rightly mentioned, and I will simply add, very famously said, data is the new oil. The manufacturing industry is catching up and using digital technologies in transforming and reinventing themselves. Today, we will speak to our panel of experts on what their views and, more importantly, what are their experiences with data management in the manufacturing sector for increasing operational efficiencies. So welcome to all of you. And let me start with the first question on asset performance management. So assets in any manufacturing organization, assets play a very big role. So is the asset fully utilized? Are there optimizations possible on the assets? So a number of questions come in respect of the asset performance, lifecycle and management. I request Sumit ji if he could share his views and experiences on how the modern digital tools are contributing in better asset performance and management. Yes, Sumit ji.
Good afternoon all. Good afternoon, Shobna. So yeah, I think it's a very important topic for our manufacturing industry. The asset performance has, of late has come out into a major, I would say, introspection in terms of how this has to be taken forward. One is the integrated solution, where we have one asset, one view, and that is basically an enterprise-wide view where they want to see, can we drive a standardization and, and sharing the best practices in terms of the maintenance strategies, which we do it for each of this asset. Then one of the important part is that, can we eliminate, the multiple and disconnected point solutions? So that's a very important part, and add it when you are basically, eliminating the disconnected point solutions. Can you add the power of predict, and basically when you have this predictive analytics come into this place, can you improve the run length or prevent the unplanned downtime? And then it leads to a sustained cost reduction. And that's very important, in parts of the manufacturing industry, because you need to attain the asset equipment and see that the mechanical integrity is maintained. So as we go ahead in this era of digital transformation, for manufacturing, asset is a very key part. And without that optimization, not only in terms of the run length, but integrating that asset, the life cycle with the operations is very much a part of the digital journey, which at least the industries in petrochemicals for the process plant, which run in 24/7, is a key as we go ahead. Yes, Shobna.
Thank you, Sumit ji. Mr. Ashok, would you like to throw any more insights on this, on the asset performance management, please?
Good evening, everyone. On the asset performance management, I think Mr. Sumit has covered a lot of points. And in general, the assets are very critical, and the management as well as the financial management as well as the physical management are already very critical for any organization. And the asset performance, I think, already is one of the financial goal of the organization, that return on assets or return on capital employed is already monitored every quarter or every month or every half yearly based on the financial principles of each organization. And if it is a project assets or part of a big project, then a lot of deliberations already take place before even planning to procure the asset. And there are a lot of, I think, initiatives also currently taking place in automation, in asset management and asset performance management. There are a lot of apps, I think, are also being built. And as Mr. Sumit has already covered, that is one of the key area, and that is also needing continuous improvement and automation. And we have to check whether, as of now, since a lot of capex to opex is already going and a lot of cloud adoption is in place, so how much is this product going to grow, or how much is this service going to grow. That is also where we have to discuss and then maybe guide the future of all these applications and the future of the asset performance management, etc. Because if everything, most of the thing goes on cloud, then you don't have those assets. They are all under OpEx. So that also is one point. And I think other things are mostly covered, and we can concentrate on this. Maybe we can throw more light on this in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashok. Okay. Now, as you know, companies are generating enormous amount of data. With the new technologies like IoT, AI, RPA, there is more and more data that is being generated. But is this data actually being used in bettering manufacturing output or in increasing operational efficiencies? Yogesh ji, I would like you to throw some lights. And again, if you have some use cases, if it could help the audience to actually connect with how the data is really impacting the manufacturing concerns using the new technologies.
Exactly. Thank you so much. First thing first, good afternoon, everyone, and hope everyone is taking good care of themselves and their family. These are challenging times, so better to be on a virtual platform. Thank you for MITS for organizing this forum and inviting us to share our views, experience, and use cases. Coming to your question, Shobhanaji, I'll start with the use case because a lot of literature is available on the market. Okay, anybody can just Google IoT, Google anything that they would like to, and they can acquire the knowledge. But how do we implement that? That's most important. And I'll start with our own or my own organization, and this use case is in public domain, so I have a full liberty to share it. Of course, I'm going to avoid some confidential information, and even if something that you hear you should not be hearing, please ignore it because I don't have a habit of censoring my words. So we are car seat manufacturing organization. We make and we are globally #1. We make around 300,000 car sets per day and deliver it to OEMs. And OEMs are various. Right from Tesla to Tata Nano, everywhere we are there. But most important product line for us is our making a complete seat product and finished good, giving it to the customer. The most critical component for that is the fabric or trim, which is on top of any seat. And any wrinkles on that seat can cause rejection to the finished good. Now, imagine if I make a complete seat, where I'm investing my money day to day, and it's getting rejected at the OEM side after giving a finished good. Now, what do I have to do? Of course, QC, check, all these parameters can be done, but it's a laborious activity. So what did we do? We implemented some image-based solutions which will detect my car seat fabric surface wrinkles by taking about 1,600 images per second from all 360-degree view, compile it, make the analysis, throw back the data, right from the shoulder edge till the the thigh point of the car seat. I mean, I'm assuming that whenever people sit, they'll imagine themselves the shoulder point to the thigh point, and then detect if there is any wrinkle. If it is, then communicate if it is patable. Patable means can we pat on that and remove it, or it needs to be rejected. That happens just after the last working station. So what is a working station? Working station is a conveyor belt where you have right from screw, plugging, vertical, horizontal, the rails, frame, etc., etc., and then the last working station where the QC should happen. That's one. Now, what do we need for all this? We need RPA. We need RPA to make sure whatever images I get are converted into a machine readable coding language. That coding language need to translate into a dashboard so that it can tell me where the exact pinpoint area is. And this should happen in a concise, precise place at the same time to all my conveyor belts so that my shipping should not stop. And entire activity needs to happen in 1.5 minutes. Okay, so there is time bound activity, there is money involved in it, there is pressure from delivery point of view, there is pressure from manufacturing point of view, and there is pressure from shipping point of view. And this has to happen every day for all 3 shifts for every product which is going out of my site. Of course, this used to be labor intensive activity earlier. Now it is, life is more easier. Now, of course, to that, we have to manage our data also, because when our images are pretty heavy, for anybody to manage. So what is the recycling time for those images? Because we have to keep those images for 7 years from the product standardization perspective, and it cannot be stored cold. It has to be archived somewhere where those are reachable. And what we did, the most beautiful part of it is we connected all these data points to a QR code, which is accessible to our OEMs and to our insurance agencies also. So that if there is any recall of the product, they will be in position to trace back till my working station who worked on that product and whether the QC was passed on it or not. I know conveying it in a word, can be more, I can be illustrative, but because of the time constraint, I have to use specific terminologies only in it. Hope I conveyed the message. Thank you.
Thank you, Yogesh ji. I think it was pretty interesting, and just to even think about those 1,600 images that you're capturing per, I can imagine the background work and the background infrastructure that you would have to actually build up to manage this kind of a scenario. So yeah, thank you for that very interesting insight. Thank you. Yeah. So let's move to the next topic of discussion. Maybe I will take up on supply chain. I think the pandemic has really thrown open how supply chain can be a very important strength, or it could be a weakness for any organization, right? So how do you really bridge the gap between demand and supply? That is point number 1. And second, there is always a possibility that the demand changes, depending on circumstances. I think we saw last year that how the demand suddenly went up and down, depending on the lockdowns and the easing of lockdowns. And we are still experiencing it up to today. So what is your experience in the manufacturing sector, particularly in the supply chain piece? And how are you using the digital technologies, to handle these kind of, criticalities? Yogesh ji, since you're already there, you can start off. Yeah.
Sure, thank you. So first thing first, it's not any SCM activity, is a pretty conversational piece, because you have to have a convincing power to not only to your internal stakeholders, but also need to have a convincing power for the external stakeholders. And so typically from our side, at least from IT side, we try to be a partner along with suppliers to make sure the EDI communications gets established. That is point 1. When EDI is established, it's very easy to have a direct automatic sharing via some secure channel, whether it's portal, whether it's file sharing or SharePoint access or kind of. That medium or tool can be chosen later stage. Second important thing is, if we are updating or upgrading our ecosystem, it is important to have the similar ecosystem deployed at that support partner also. For example, as I said, we are a supplier for Tata's. So whatever system Tata's are probably using, it's our duty to make sure we establish. And accomplish that at our side first. And mind you, it's Ford or GM or any other OEM, they will do the same thing. If we talk about, now the invoicing processes, earlier, the invoices used to come and go via those truck or lorry vendors while providing the finished good or delivering the finished good. Now we don't do that anymore. We don't have to send a physical copy of it because the finished good goes over there. The truck driver can scan a QR code, and the PO can get linked to the GRN, that is goods receivables. Once that is done, yes, we know the goods are received, we know the invoice can be generated. So the invoicing mechanism can happen via Fiori, SAP Fiori directly instead of going via check mechanisms or bank transfer mechanisms where we give authority to a financial agency which can take a call to initiate which payment when and etc. That helps in reducing the financial burdens on every partner which is involved in it. So having a supply chain ecosystem in a manufacturing organization involves every department and their trust index on each other rather than more than information technology enabler. Thank you.
Thank you, Yogesh ji. Sumit ji, if you could also give us your views on this.
Yeah, I think Yogesh has rightly summed up. I think the pre-COVID times, if you see, the supply chain was more rudimentary, even the marketing in our area, because we deal with petrochemical products. There are a lot of customers, around 4,000 across India and abroad. One is the inbound and it is the outbound. So there was a massive change in terms of the marketing requirement also, where, the normal, the conventional way of reaching out to customers through phone calls, emails was asking for a change. And that's what we went in and, come up with some internally developed customer portal, which in normal terms is the CRM base. So it was a digital enabled sales, which we went in for, so that the customers or the agents, they can log in and, come out with their, whatever orders. They can also see their part of the deliveries, and they can also communicate back with our backend team in the logistics in a seamless digital way. That was one of the aspects which really enabled the supply chain to at least see that the sales orders are booked on a digital way. And then we have internal SAP ERP to take up the internal process right up to the billing. Then in the outbound logistics, what we felt was people were very much interested to see where the goods are, at what point is there any sort of an accidents happening, or there's a pilferage of the product and all. So that was also manually, maintained through a network of transporters which we had. So what we did was we implemented, and this is an SAP solutions only, we had an electronic POD, the proof of delivery. Attached to that was an e-tracking, where we had an external service provider who was giving the feeds, and that both the feeds were there. There was GPS based and there were SIM-based feeds which were coming to our system. And then added to that, we introduced a small app where, the customers, when they're receiving the material, if there are any pilferage, if there are any damages, they could immediately do an online app complaint, so that against that particular invoices, whether the full packages have been received or damages or lost, all those things can be captured digitally end to end. So what we had enabled in a digital way was, one is right from the e-invoicing, which is mandated now, to the tracking of those materials, geofencing when the material arrives, at the customer place, the e-signing, including the payment of the transporters through our Ariba channel, so that they are able to get their freight and all in a discounted rate, because we do also give some discounting if the payments are made in time and early. So all this methodology, if you see, the process was digitally enabled, and that helped as a company to reduce the cost, improve the efficiency, and of course, at the end of the day, is the customer delight, which we were targeting. So that's a major part which today, digitally things have improved a lot. And we are now trying to bring in some bit of an AI on top of it, so that the customers also can get a feel about, a particular, I would say, the transporter's ability to deliver goods in time, their ability to see whether some data which we are providing them, they can do some analysis and also come out with an improved product or new product development, which can help us internally to augment our product reach to the customers. So those things are happening within the supply chain management system. Yes, definitely.
Thank you. Thank you, Sumit ji. Ashok ji, you have any experience that you could share with us?
Yeah. Around, say, we started digitization when I was in one of my previous organizations around 10 years back, where we started with the supplier portal. That was new at that point of time with SAP, SRM, as well as with supplier portals. We, at that point of time, made the procure to pay, the entire procure to pay cycle automatic, where the system will generate the request through MRP and then automatically generate purchase orders and send to the supplier through portal, and the supplier will receive and send the advanced shipping notifications back to the organization department through portal as well as SAP, and then accordingly we can also make for standard items even scheduling agreements for 6 months to 1 year. So that was the start of digitization. Going forward, we have done the automatic integration of SAP with the logistics service providers systems. It may be SAP or non-SAP, where if there are a lot of consignments planned, and those consignments will automatically go ahead after invoicing, it will automatically get scheduled for logistics. And even sometimes the schedule will be available few days in advance for proper planning and vehicle management, etc. And then after that, we also introduced the GPS system where the trucks and lorries can be tracked, whether they are going in the proper direction, also for rerouting and optimal transportation management. And currently, we are also looking at SAP and similar projects who are trying to automate the transport management, vehicle scheduling, etc. I think 1 or 2 years later, they are expecting some new models. Maybe it might have got delayed owing to COVID. So that is one set of automation we are looking at, but it will take time, maybe 3-4 years down the line. SAP Leonardo may shape up. And currently, as of now, in SAP HANA also, we are doing a lot of developments for automating the entire procure to pay cycle. So currently, a lot of work is going on in various organizations in various fields, and a lot of apps have also been developed. For example, in one of the retail industries, we also developed app for distributors, retailers, etc. We have developed apps for distributors to track each distributor person also, where the OEM's orders are being sold to which retailer, and from retailer to end customer also, we have been developing apps. So these are some areas where, apart from whatever our friends have done, apart from that, there is these areas also where automation and digitization is going on.
Thank you. So just an extension of the same question, are you also using predictive analytics, to drive the efficiencies either on the manufacturing side or on the supply chain side?
As of now, predictive analytics, we have to check 3-4 times we had planned. In some areas, we had used BI, SAP BI, as well as SAP BO, as well as we had used Tableau, Microsoft BI, and other tools. But actual predictive analytics, other than in some standard products which are sold, it is very tough because the pattern of projection itself varies as this demand supply keeps on varying. I have not come across where we can properly apply it. It may take some time, but in some standard areas, I think we can apply. The latest one we will be exploring maybe in a couple of years. So the actual predictive analytics, I have seen abroad. I have seen in Brazil and China, it is already in place. But in India, I think in some areas, it may be in place in big organization with standard product. But I think it's still, it is expecting a lot of growth.
Right. Sumitji, Yogesh, you have anything to add on the predictive analytics piece?
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a need of the hour for, at least for us, the organizations which are for example, from order receiving to order delivery, we get about 120 minutes. So if I have to deliver my product to my OEM site in 120 minutes, I have to, with my JITs component, that is just in time component assembly, I need to make sure I have enough raw material available at my site to assemble it and dispatch it. And even if it is 121 minute, I get a penalty for that. So I need to make sure I have enough inventory at my site, and the essential ecosystem suppliers are given enough time to make sure their product, the BOM is available with them also. So we have a predictive mechanism, predictive product analysis and mechanisms in place, which help us make sure our finished good reaches on time to the OEM. Of course, in all this, there are some areas which are confidential technology used, which is internal to Adient and cannot be, it's a proprietary to Adient, but some tools are market support partners also. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Yogesh. Yeah, Sumitji.
Yeah, I think predictive analytics in the manufacturing industry, especially for our process, in the previous company in Reliance and presently here in HPL, I think it's very essential that we get it implemented, and we have done it also. Especially if you see for rotary equipments, which is very critical to manufacturing, any compressor, big pumps, and all. We have, basically in the present organization, we are doing a pilot for GE Smart Signal. It's basically a similarity-based model where you are basically connecting, because in a rudimentary old machines, there will be certain sensors where you're getting those signals through your historians, and there will be certain add-on sensors which you have to put in, where you can really see the vibrations coming in the online. So vibration data, process data, and the mechanical conditions of the equipment combined together with the simulative-based model, we have been able to predict then early events quite in advance, about 30 or 40 days in advance, when a particular seal leak can happen, or a particular vibrations, can come out an abrupt turn, which can lead to an unplanned downtime, So those things are placed, but these are all very, I would say, rigorous solutions, very expensive in terms of maintaining it and building it, because as of now, going forward, we need to have those ML into place, the machine learning into place, because as and when, because in the process industry, if you see, the process will vary, your feed will vary, your properties will vary. And based on that, the impact on that particular machines will also vary. So you need to have a, in some sort of a closed loop by which the diagnostic also can vary based on the different condition in which that machine is, operating. And in the static assets, in terms of, pressure vessels, heaters, pipelines, and all, we have implemented the digital corrosion loops, so that the degradation mechanism for each of those fluids which is passing through the static assets are measured. And then based on that degradation model, we are able to predict where a probable corrosion can happen, and then simultaneously reduce the risk-based inspection. So that gives an additional cost into it. So both static and rotary, at least when I speak to my peers in other process industries, especially in refineries, there are very much good use cases now coming up in predictive analytics, and that's the need of the hour. And in the terms of the process side, advanced process control was always there. APCs were always there. On top of it, we are implementing the RTOs and digital twins. The digital twin is basically not as a whole complex, but we are taking plant by plant. So like, for example, in our case, the mother plant is NCU, the cracking plant. The cracking plant is getting that digital twin through which we can do and simulate and do an extra yield out of it. So that sort of, I think technologies are there, is getting implemented, and it's showing a good amount of results, in terms of the cost efficiency and driving the yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Sumitji. I think coming almost to the end, I would just like to ask each of you and what your views are on the future trends in the next 3 to 5 years. Uh, yeah, Sumitji, you're already there, so if you could
Okay. Yeah, I think
continue and
yeah, the trend is very fast changing. If you see, things have come in a different way in terms of where the people have implemented digital transformation. AI is going to change a lot of this way we are presently doing the automation. In recent last month only, I got a request from my HR. Why can't we have an AI bots? Instead of HR guys telling and answering all these queries, which is mostly rudimentary in nature. So it's not that we from the IT is going to implement it. It's going to come from the business. They are also very much aware of the new technologies. So one is AI. Machine learning is definitely going to come when we, especially in the manufacturing space, when we have network of sensors with edge devices coming out, and there will be a lot of other interest coming in with the operators who would like to see that early events are generated rather than they do a reactive sort of a maintain. So that is an important part of it. Then in the business side also, if you see the technologies as we saw, Yogesh was rightly saying the RPAs and all, this is going to, gain traction as we, come up and see the regular business actions, which we are doing a transaction in the ARP can be easily automated. Obviously, there will be pros and cons in terms of, how the people will react to the jobs and all. But as we go ahead, this sort of a trend is going to take it up, and we have to see where best in the company scenarios based on a certain use cases, we'll have to experiment and take this forward. Thank you.
thank you, Sumitji. Yeah, Yogesh.
So for me, see, next 2 to 3 years, at least for my industry, I would say, and that's the way I usually operate, is how my end users' life becomes easy. Okay, and I care very little what's happening outside world. I care more for my end users within my organizations. If my technician need to spend more time learning that technology instead of making a product available for me, that's not good technology for me. So and that's the reason maybe automation, making menus available with them in a GUI format, making a RPA predictive analysis done for my machinery, for my maintenance department, even smallest to the smallest for my ISO documentations, right? If there are three major people, the process owner, the subject matter expert, and compliance manager. If any of these three is not in the organization, my document review cycle just flushed out, right? How do I automate it? Internally. These are the simplest use cases which I usually work on and get a pat on the back from my organization for making their life easy. Thank you.
Thank you, Yogesh. Yeah, thank you, Yogesh. Yes, Ashokji.
Yeah. So overall, the trend is going to be for the couple of years. It's going to be digitization, in which cost reduction and time reduction are the expected output from IT, from various businesses, for which automation is the key, and it is going to be IT as a business enabler. And AI, RPA, Industry 4.0, and other automation are the way forward. And accordingly, unlearning, learning new skills is also the key. So going forward with digitization automation as the goals, the business objectives will be tied to the same. And based on improvement or increase in digitization, and we should also be able to face the new competition as well as all the latest trends to be accommodated. However, it is again based on a lot of other factors in each industry and each organization, such as the budget availability, the ability to adopt to cloud, private, public, or hybrid, the ability to change, transform the organization within short period of time, change management, and effective leadership. So these are going to be the key areas for IT as a business enabler to support various businesses in India as well as globally.
Thank you, Ashokji. Thank you, Yogeshji, and thank you, Sumitji, for the very interesting insights and views. I'll just try and summarize some of the points which I noted down while the discussions were on. We did speak about, when we talked of asset performance management, we talked of, sustained cost reduction, and the focus will be on, the return on the capital invested. So I think manufacturing companies will definitely still keep in mind on, the ROI for any of the assets and how they can keep utilizing or optimizing the usage of the asset, because assets are a big part of any manufacturing organization, right? Yogeshji, thanks for giving us that very interesting case study. I'm sure people will go and actually look it up on the case study that's available on the public domain. We talked of supply chain. Supply chain, I think the important aspect is it is not just the internal organization, but it is also a lot of the external stakeholders who are part of the loop, and that's where the collaboration becomes extremely important. And it's important to have all the stakeholders in loop and having the right communication so that the supply chain deliveries are not impacted adversely, right? Then we talked about the future, the futuristic, or what do we see in the next few years. I think all the panelists here agree that AI, ML, RPA are definitely here to stay, and they will get matured in the long run. People who have still not adopted will look at adopting it. A lot of it will be business driven rather than IT asking the business to actually adopt it. A lot of it will be initiated by the business themselves when they see the use cases. A lot of focus on the user-friendly approach so that it's easier for even the shop floor operators or people to adopt technologies. They need to be user-friendly enough for users to adopt them, right? And also on the cost reduction and from the preventive maintenance, we talked about the predictive analytics. I just missed that piece in the briefing. I think predictive analytics is another one which will help us, better utilization of logistics and supply chain management using predictive analytics. So all in all, I think the technologies that we are talking of today, whether it is predictive analytics, AI, ML, RPA, I think a big shout from the manufacturing sector that, they are all in the process of adopting them. And in the next 3 to 5 years, we will see an increased adoption and increased acceptance of these technologies in the long run. So thank you, everybody. And back to you, Nikita.